Sophia Carter raced through the crowded airport terminal, her heartbeat drumming in sync with the frantic click of her heels against the polished floor. Her phone was pressed tightly against her ear, the voice on the other end growing more impatient by the second. "You have to be on that flight, Sophia. This pitch could change everything for us." I know, she hissed, dodging a slow-moving family with an overstuffed stroller. "I'm almost at the gate. Just hold tight." The airline had just announced that only one seat remained on the flight to New York. One seat. And if she didn't get on that plane, she'd miss the biggest opportunity of her career. She rounded the corner, her eyes locking onto the check-in counter. Relief flooded her until she saw him. Tall, imposing, dressed in an expensive, perfectly tailored suit. His dark hair was neatly styled, and his sharp features gave off the air of someone who was used to getting exactly what he wanted. And right now, what he wanted was her seat. "I believe I was here first," Sophia declared, breathless but determined as she reached the counter at the same time he did. The man turned his head slowly, taking her in with an expression of mild disinterest. "I don't think so." Sophia shot a glare at the airline attendant, a weary-looking woman who had clearly seen her fair share of impatient travelers. "I need that ticket. I have an urgent business meeting in New York." "And I have an urgent meeting as well," the man said, sliding his black card onto the counter. "Go ahead and book it under my name." Sophia's jaw clenched. "Excuse me? You can't just buy your way ahead of me." His lips twitched, but it wasn't quite a smile. "That's exactly how the world works." Oh, he was one of those. Arrogant, entitled, the kind of man who thought money solved everything. Sophia turned back to the attendant, desperate. "I got here at the same time. Isn't there something you can do?" The woman sighed. "There's only one seat left." "But—" She hesitated. "There is a first-class row with 2 available seats, if you're both willing to sit next to each other." Sophia flinched. Sit next to him? She glanced at the man, expecting him to protest. Instead, he let out an exasperated breath and shrugged. "Fine. Book us both." Sophia's pride screamed at her to refuse, but she wasn't about to let this jerk get what he wanted while she missed her meeting. "Fine," she muttered through gritted teeth. As the tickets were printed, the man extended a hand toward her. "Nathan." She ignored his hand. "Carter. And just so we're clear, I still don't like you." Nathan smirked. "Oh, the feeling is mutual." They grabbed their tickets and headed toward the boarding gate, both silently dreading the long flight ahead. Neither of them realized this was only the beginning of a battle far bigger than an airplane seat. As soon as they settled into their seats, the battle for dominance continued. Sophia and Nathan barely buckled their seatbelts before the bickering started. "That's my armrest," she snapped as he casually claimed the space between them. "First come, first served," he replied smoothly, not even bothering to glance at her as he adjusted his expensive watch. Sophia huffed. "Unbelievable." "What's unbelievable is that you're still talking," Nathan said, stretching out his long legs. Before she could retort, the flight attendant arrived with the pre-flight drink service. "Champagne for our first-class passengers." Sophia opened her mouth to politely decline, but Nathan interrupted. "She'll have water." Bubbly might be too much for her to handle. Her eyes narrowed dangerously. "Actually, I'll have whatever he's having. And make it 2. Nathan's smirk widened. "Oh, trying to keep up?" "More like trying to drown out the sound of your voice." The flight attendant, wisely sensing the tension, handed over their drinks with a tight smile before retreating. The plane taxied down the runway, and as soon as they were in the air, their war waged on. From meal choices, Nathan getting the last filet mignon, leaving Sophia with pasta, to their silent competition for the flight attendant's attention. Every little thing became a contest. Then came the turbulence. A sudden jolt shook the cabin, and Sophia's champagne sloshed right onto Nathan's pristine shirt. He inhaled sharply, staring down at the spreading stain. "You got to be kidding me." Sophia pressed her lips together, suppressing a laugh. "Oops, my bad." Nathan exhaled through his nose, grabbed a napkin, and started blotting his shirt. "Fantastic. Just fantastic." The turbulence didn't let up. As the plane shook again, Sophia instinctively grabbed the nearest thing for support, Nathan's arm. They both froze. His suit was warm beneath her fingers, the muscle beneath even warmer. For a second, neither of them moved. Then she yanked her hand away as if burned. "Don't read into that." Nathan arched a brow. "Oh, trust me, I wouldn't dare." She turned back toward the window, ignoring the way her pulse had jumped. Just a reaction to the turbulence. That's all. Halfway through the flight, just as she was beginning to feel the tension ease, her phone buzzed, and her heart sank the second she read the message. "Airline update. Your checked baggage has been misplaced. Please contact customer service upon arrival." Her stomach twisted. Her suitcase contained everything. Her presentation materials, backup notes, a power suit that made her feel like she could command a boardroom. This pitch was her career-defining moment, and now she was at risk of walking in empty-handed. "Something wrong?" Nathan's voice was deceptively casual, but when she turned, she found him watching her intently. Sophia hesitated, then shook her head. "Nothing I can't handle." Nathan didn't push, but she could feel his eyes on her as she tried to steady her breathing. She needed a plan, needed to think. She glanced at him, considering whether to tell him the truth. But before she could answer, Nathan's phone rang. He answered with the smooth confidence of someone who is used to being in control. "Hale speaking." "Yes, I want the London deal finalized by Monday. No exceptions." Sophia stiffened. "Hale?" Her mind spun. She had heard that name before. Her company was pitching to... Her breath caught as realization struck like lightning. Nathan Hale wasn't just some arrogant businessman. He was the CEO of Hale Enterprises, the very man who could make or break her career, the CEO of the very company she was pitching to tomorrow. She had spent the last few hours snapping at, flirting with the Nathan Hale, and he had no idea. Her pulse thundered in her ears. If she'd known who he was from the start, she would have been professional, charming, calculated. Instead, she had challenged him at the gate, argued over armrests, spent the last few hours fighting him over a plane seat, spilling champagne on him, and insulting him at every turn. Sophia swallowed hard, fingers tightening around her phone. This changed everything. She needed to recover. Fast. Taking a steadying breath, she turned to him with a new resolve. "Nathan." He arched a brow at her sudden shift in tone. "Oh, we're on a first-name basis now." Sophia forced a small smile. "I realize we got off on the wrong foot." Nathan leaned back, eyes glinting with amusement. "That is an understatement." She ignored the dig. "You clearly have a strong business mind," she said, slipping into her most confident, polished tone. "I'd love to hear your thoughts on something." His smirk lingered, but there was curiosity behind it now. "Go on." Sophia reached for her tablet, pulling up a few preliminary slides from memory. "Say you're looking at a rebranding campaign for a mid-tier consumer product. What's your first priority?" Nathan studied her for a long moment, as if seeing her in a different light. Then he gestured to the screen. "Show me what you've got." Her heart pounded as she launched into a refined version of her pitch, adjusting on the fly to appeal to him. Nathan listened, eyes sharp, nodding at certain points, challenging her on others. His questions were direct, incisive, testing her knowledge, forcing her to defend her strategy. At one point, he leaned in, voice low. You talk a big game, but I can tell when someone's bluffing. Sophia refused to look away. And I can tell when someone underestimates me. Nathan's lips twitched, his expression unreadable. Impressive. She exhaled slowly, letting the word settle. Impressive. Coming from him, it felt like a small victory. Then she made her move. I should probably mention something, she said, voice steady. Nathan raised a brow. Oh. She met his gaze head on, heart hammering. I'm pitching to you tomorrow. For Hale Enterprises. For the first time, she saw him falter. The shift was subtle, his posture straightened, his smirk faded just slightly. But she caught it. Then, he exhaled a quiet laugh, shaking his head. Well, well. His eyes flicked over her, as if reassessing everything about her. This just got interesting. Sophia crossed her arms. It sure did. Nathan studied her, his smirk returning. This time, sharper. You do realize I have the power to make or break this deal. I do. And yet, you spent the last few hours challenging me at every turn. I did. Nathan chuckled, shaking his head. You've got guts, Carter. She lifted her chin. I also have the best campaign strategy for your company. And I'm going to prove it tomorrow. He leaned in slightly, eyes glinting. You'd better. Sophia held his gaze, the tension between them shifting into something more dangerous, more electric. She had no idea if she had just saved her pitch or made things 100 times harder. Either way, there was no turning back. Sophia felt her pulse in her throat as Nathan's smirk deepened. His gaze swept over her, assessing, intrigued. This just got interesting, he had said, and damn it, he was right. She had spent hours arguing with this man, treating him like an insufferable obstacle, when in reality, he was her target, the CEO she needed to impress. The one holding the power to make or break everything she had worked for. And now, instead of staying distant, instead of playing it safe, she had challenged him. Nathan tilted his head, studying her like a puzzle he was enjoying solving. I have to say, Carter, you don't bore me. She crossed her arms. That wasn't the goal. No. He leaned in slightly, his voice dipping into something smoother, more dangerous. Then tell me, what was? She swallowed hard. She knew he was testing her, baiting her, seeing if she would flinch. And she couldn't. Not now. Sophia met his gaze head on. To prove that I belong in that boardroom tomorrow. Nathan held her stare for a long moment, something unreadable flickering behind his eyes. Then his lips quirked. I guess we'll see, won't we? Before she could respond, the intercom crackled to life. Ladies and gentlemen, we regret to inform you that due to severe weather conditions in New York, landing may be delayed. We appreciate your patience. A murmur of discontent spread through the cabin. Sophia felt her stomach twist. Great. Just what I needed. She rubbed her temples, willing the stress away. First, her luggage was missing. Now the weather was turning against her. Could anything else go wrong? Next to her, Nathan let out a soft chuckle. Looks like the universe isn't making this easy for you. She exhaled sharply. Yeah, well, I've never needed easy to win. Nathan's smirk deepened. Good. Because something tells me the real turbulence hasn't even started yet. Sophia barely kept her composure as she stood at the hotel reception desk, clutching her phone like a lifeline. You're telling me, she repeated, voice strained with disbelief, that there are no available rooms in all of Manhattan. The exhausted hotel clerk gave an apologetic nod. With the storm rolling in, we're at full capacity. However, She tapped a few keys on her computer. There's one last suite available. I'll take it. They both echoed at the same time. The clerk hesitated, glancing between them. It's a luxury suite, but with only one bed. Sophia sucked in a sharp breath. Nathan, on the other hand, exhaled a soft chuckle, the corner of his mouth lifting in clear amusement. Well, well, he mused, turning to her with an insufferably smug look. Looks like we're roommates. She groaned, rubbing her temple. This cannot be happening. Shall I book it under both your names? The clerk asked. Sophia wanted to say no. She wanted to storm out, find a dingy motel on the outskirts of the city, and avoid spending another second trapped with the most infuriating man alive. But she had no choice. Fine, she bit out. But don't get any ideas. Nathan's smirk deepened. Oh, sweetheart, I think you have enough ideas for both of us. The suite was stunning, floor-to-ceiling windows offering a dazzling city view, plush furnishings, and a massive bed that sat right in the center of it all, like a cruel joke from the universe. Sophia dropped her bag with a sigh. I'll sleep on the couch. Nathan loosened his tie, tossing his jacket onto a nearby chair. Be my guest. Though, considering how terrible this day has been, you might want to treat yourself to the king-sized comfort. She ignored him, walking toward the in-soot bathroom. I'd go have a shower first, she declared, needing a moment alone to decompress. The hot water was a blessing, washing away the stress, but as she stepped out, a fresh wave of tension settled over her. She had nothing but the oversized hotel robe to wear. Her suitcase, her outfits, her presentation materials, her sense of control was still missing. She tightened the belt around her waist and walked back out, only to find Nathan lounging on the bed, his shirt unbuttoned at the collar, his sleeves rolled up, exuding effortless confidence. He looked like he belonged there, like he owned the space, just like he tried to own every room he walked into. Enjoy your shower? He asked, his voice smooth as silk. It would have been better if I weren't stuck in this nightmare, she muttered, moving toward the couch. Nathan stood, walking toward her with slow, deliberate steps. You know, he mused, for someone who was practically snarling at me a few hours ago, you're holding up surprisingly well. Sophia turned, folding her arms. Don't flatter yourself, she said. I'm just trying to survive the night. His gaze flickered down, lingering just a beat too long on the curve of her hip beneath the robe. The air thickened between them, an unspoken challenge hanging in the space. Nathan leaned in slightly, voice dropping an octave. Funny, but I think you like this. You know, the back and forth, the way I rattle you and get under your skin. Her breath caught. I don't. Liar. He murmured. A shiver raced down her spine. His presence was overwhelming, his scent clean and expensive, making her pulse quicken. She should step back. She should shut this down. But instead, she met his gaze, letting the heat build. The breaking point. Nathan was the first to move, lifting a hand and tracing a slow line down her arm. Featherlight, but devastating. Tell me to stop, he murmured. Sophia's lips parted, but no words came. His fingers grazed her waist, lingering at the knot of her robe. Tell me you don't want this? Her heart hammered, logic battling against the undeniable pull between them. I hate you, she whispered. Nathan chuckled, the sound dark and knowing. That's not an answer. She was drowning in him, in the heady mix of tension and curiosity and reckless temptation. Before she could think better of it, she closed the distance, crashing her lips against his. The kiss was fire, hot, demanding, fueled by every unsaid word, every lingering glance. every moment of resistance that had led to this. Nathan groaned against her mouth, his hands finding her waist, pulling her flesh against him. She felt the hard planes of his body, the strength in his grip, and it made her dizzy with need. He deepened the kiss, tilting her head back as he pressed her against the wall. His fingers teased at the belt of her robe, loosening it just enough to make her gasp. "This is a bad idea," she whispered. "The worst," he said before claiming her lips again, but neither of them pulled away. Sophia's back met the cool wall, a stark contrast to the heat radiating between them. Nathan's hand skimmed along her waist, teasing but not yet taking, his control maddeningly precise. She should stop this. Oh God, she should stop this. But her fingers were already threading through his hair, pulling him closer instead of pushing him away. Nathan smirked against her lips, sensing her surrender. "I thought you hated me," he murmured, his breath hot against her skin as he trailed slow kisses down her neck. "I do," she whispered, but the way her body arched toward him made it a blatant lie. His teeth scraped lightly against the sensitive spot just below her ear, making her gasp. "Liar," he murmured again, his voice full of amusement and something darker, something that sent a delicious shiver through her. With agonizing slowness, he traced the edge of her robe, slipping a hand beneath the fabric, his fingertips gliding over the bare skin of her thigh. Sophia sucked in a sharp breath, every nerve in her body coming alive under his touch. "You're shaking," he noted, his voice a mix of curiosity and challenge. "I'm just—" She swallowed hard, struggling to form a coherent thought. "Nervous," Nathan said, finishing for her, tilting her chin up, so she had no choice but to meet his gaze. His eyes were dark, intense, filled with something she wasn't ready to name. "No," she lied again. He chuckled, brushing his lips against hers in a kiss so slow, so devastatingly soft, that it made her toes curl. "I think you like this," he murmured against her mouth. "I think you like me." That snapped her out of it. Sophia pushed against his chest, breathless, her pulse erratic. "Don't flatter yourself." Nathan let her go, but not before brushing one last lingering touch along her hip. "Too late," he said, smirking. "You already did that for me." She exhaled sharply, willing herself to regain control. This was insanity. She had a career-defining pitch in a few hours. She had no business getting tangled up with the very man she needed to impress. "I'm going to bed," she declared, yanking her robe tighter around her. Nathan stepped back, raking a hand through his hair as he studied her with that same knowing smirk. "Suit yourself. But I have a feeling you'll be dreaming about me. Keep dreaming, Hale," she replied as he chuckled and climbed into bed, watching as she curled up on the too small couch. "Sweet dreams, Carter," he murmured. Sophia closed her eyes, but sleep never came, not with the memory of his touch still burning on her skin and the terrifying realization that she wanted more.